Okay, I think we are ready to start. If you are in the chat, please say hi. Okay, so yeah, let's start with today's session. So what we're going to do today is to work on some of these challenges that are here. So this is a website developed by Igor Benik that I think is really cool because it proposes some challenges to be solved related to WordPress development. And the challenges are really cool because they cover different aspects of WordPress development and blog development. I discovered this page because of a conversation with Roelof Guven, a developer that is very active in the Making WordPress Slack. I don't know if you are in the chat, Roelof. Okay, perfect. So you are in. So yeah, I think that this is really cool, like these WordPress challenges. And Roelof asked about some of them, so I think we can start there. We can just try to solve some of these challenges, and maybe we can start on this one. And once we've done that, maybe we can discuss some other ones like this one or this one. But yeah, let's do that. Let's just start with this. So what we can do is to set a development environment. In order to do that, what we can do is to launch Studio. So what we want to do is to be able to work locally with WordPress. And we are going to use this tool. This tool is this one, Studio. Yeah, this one. This is a tool, it's available for Mac and for Windows that we can use to very quickly set a development environment, and it handles everything you need to work locally with WordPress, like the database, the PHP interpreter, and even more things such as changing the WordPress version, changing the PHP version. You can do imports, exports, you can synchronize your local site with WordPress.com site. You can also generate quick previews of your local site that can be viewed publicly. You can like generate some temporary URLs for people to see the work you're doing. So yeah, it's really cool, and it's pretty convenient for what we want to do. So this is the tool, and what we can do is maybe we can create a new one. Yes. So WordPress challenges. This will generate a new site. And we have this site here ready for us to do things on it. We have direct access to like the front-end side, a direct link to the admin, and some other direct links that you can see here. So one thing we can do is to open this site in our preferred IDE. I have here configured cursor, but this is something that can be set here in preferences. You can use several IDEs. It detects the ones you have installed on your computer and it provides like direct links. So because I prefer using cursor, I'm going to click here, and here we have the code of our WordPress installation. So now we have everything ready to start working. So let's read a little bit of the challenge. Okay, so it says create a blog that fetches and displays posts from a specific category dynamically. The requirements are have a dropdown that shows categories on the side panel, and also display fetched posts within the blog. It can be only a linked title or more info if you want. Okay, so we need to develop a blog that includes a dropdown in the sidebar that allows us to, let me see, we can reset the canvas. So our blog should that we are going to call blog categories post or something like that. Blog category posts. So this is going to be our blog. So this blog, when we insert it in the post editor, for example, is going to display like post 1, post 2, post 3. You're going to display like different posts belonging to the category that we select here. So here there will be like a drop down, and we can select here. We can select here the category 1, category 2, category 3. So once we have selected a category, let's imagine we select category 1. That we select category 1. Okay, the stream is stopping every few minutes. Okay, thanks for the feedback. Let me check. Is it just the audio or is it? Let me see. Let me see if I can check my Twitch. Okay. Okay, it seems to go fine in Twitch. But okay, let me know if this continues being an issue. So I can check this again. Okay. So I was checking, I was explaining what we need to do with the block. Okay, so the behavior we need to implement. So we have here a block that once we insert it, it should be able to display a list of posts. This list of posts will be get from the selection of a category. So here, okay. If we select category 1, this will be posts from category. If I select category 2, this will be posts from category 2. So we need to implement a UI in the sidebar. And this is something that we can do with a component that is called inspector controls. Inspector controls. So this is okay, it seems there are some issues with the stream. Okay. Well, anyway, let's hope that the recording has a good quality. I'm going to check. Okay, so this is what we need to do. So this is the block, and this is the block editor. This is the block editor, and this is the edit.js. So in the block editor, the edit component of this block needs to implement this, needs to implement the sidebar. So when the block is selected, we have this sidebar, and also that when the category is selected, we list the posts from that category. Okay, so let's go to our code. And let's start. What we can do is to scaffold a plugin that registers a block. And we can do that if we go to the block editor here in block development environment, in get started with create block. Create block is a tool we can use to scaffold a plugin that registers a block, which is what we want. So we can use this. And here, if we go to the content folder, the plugins, we can say block category posts. Category posts. This is going to generate a folder called block category posts. Hey Relof, welcome. Hey, let me know if you find more issues. So we are scaffolding a plugin that registers a block. We can do that with this tool that is documented here in the block editor. I'm going to share this in the chat. Okay, and now if we go to content plugins, here we have block category posts. And what we have here is like a basic structure of a plugin that registers a block. With a README, package.json. So this is pretty standard, but let's review this very quickly. Or let's simplify this. What I'm going to remove this, and this, and this, and this. So we are not going to need this. Then we have src. So our block is here in the folder block category post. This is the code of the block. And we are using a build process, which means that we have here a package.json with some dependencies. These dependencies they have already been installed when we have launched the create block command. As you can see, well, here, let me see if I can show. If we go to block category posts, we can see here the node modules folder, which is the folder for the dependencies. The dependencies defined are only this one, but this dependency install its own sub-dependencies, which are all the dependencies that are here in the node modules folder. Which, by the way, I cannot see here. I don't know exactly why. Maybe I need to check why the node modules, but anyway, this is not something that we really need for our code. So the dependencies are installed when we have done the scaffolding process, but we can install them anytime again by doing npm install. This is going to check the dependencies here, and it's going to install them in a node modules folder in the root folder. With these dependencies installed, we can launch things such as build start. The build or start process, they are very similar. What they do is check the src folder, it checks for any subfolders here, and it generates like a related folder under a build folder here. So you can see here we have src block category posts, and here we have build block category posts. This build version of the block is the one that we are actually registering here. So when we do npm run build, which is defined here, npm run build or npm start, it gets the index.js, and from here it gets also the edit.js, the save.js, even the CSS styles, and it generates the build version of the block, which is code optimized for production. And this is the code that we are actually registering for the block. Because here, how do we register the block? Here we are registering the block using this function that is available since the last version of WordPress 6.8. And what we do here is we are doing here two things at the same time. We are registering the metadata of the blocks, and this is actually this file, blocks manifest. This is an array that contains the metadata of all the blocks that are going to be registered by this plugin. Right now we only have one block, but it could be more. So this function registers the metadata using this block manifest, and this block manifest PHP is generated because the npm run build here is using the flag block manifest and block manifest. So it's registering this manifest, and then it registers the blocks that are defined in this manifest. So these two things are done directly using this function. So just by doing this, we can register one block or 10 or 20, because this system allows us to register several blocks, and it's like a efficient way of registering blocks. One block, 5 blocks, 10 blocks, it won't matter in terms of performance, because it will cost the same. So this is an improvement from the latest version of 6.8. Okay. So now that we have done a quick review of a plugin that registers a block, what we can do is check the code of the block. I'm going to remove the comments here to improve visibility. So we have a block that registers an edit component and a save component. The edit component, this is the one that I was referring here, and it should contain these two things, the part that displays the posts for the selected category and the UI to select the category. It should contain both things. And the save, I don't think we need a save.js because this is like the markup representation of the block in the database. But because we are going to use a dynamically render output, we don't need a save.js. So we can just do this and we can remove this here. I'm also going to remove all the styles to simplify. So this will go away. This will go away. The block.json, we can also remove this. View script, we also don't need that because we are not going to add any JavaScript in the front end. So now our block is much more simple. And if we do here, we can check how this folder, it will contain less files when we do npm run build here. It's saying that, okay, because we are importing this file somewhere that it doesn't exist anymore. So we can clean this a little bit. And here it is, this file doesn't exist. That's why we were getting that error. But now it should work. Yeah. And now we can see here this file. We only have like the index.js and the index asset, which contains the dependencies and the block.json. So yeah, we are ready to go. Okay. So what we can do? Well, first, what I want to do is to add some posts with some categories. In order to do that, I'm going to use the CLI, WP CLI. So okay, if we go to the terminal, we can check that we have WP CLI. If you don't know what WP CLI is, we can go to the documentation that is here. I'm going to share this. So this is a way to manage our WordPress installation via the command line. I'm sharing a link in the chat, and it allows us to do everything from the terminal. So one thing that I want to do is to generate like a fake content. I want to generate several posts belonging to several categories. And in order to do that, what I can do is install a plugin for the CLI, which is called Yoast CLI Faker. This is the plugin for the CLI that will allow us to launch commands to generate dummy content we can use for our project. And once we have that, we can do this. Okay, great. I will add all these commands to the notes because I usually share here in this repository, which I'm sharing in the chat. I usually share all the information, all the links and the commands that we use in the session. So yeah, I will share these commands. But the cool thing is that right now, if we go to our WordPress installation, we should have a lot of posts belonging to different categories. We need to see the here we have several posts belonging to different categories, and it has also created several categories, which is what we want, because we want to select different categories and be able to see different posts. Okay. So next thing we can do is to work on the render side of the block. This is something that we need to add here. So the block, we can define the block to generate, so the output of the block when it's rendered for the front end can be generated dynamically by using PHP code, but it can also be generated statically. So at the time of editing, we can just save a static version of the block that is going to be returned to the front end when the block is displayed. So we have these two ways of generating the front end of a block, and this is explained here in the block editor, in fundamentals of block development. Here we have static or dynamic rendering of a block, and here we have like these two ways. They can be combined, but right now we are going to focus on this dynamic rendering. So what we're going to do is define a render PHP that when there is a request for that block, the render PHP is going to do some process in the server, is going to retrieve data, and is going to generate the HTML. Okay. And in order to do that, what we are going to do is to generate a query using we are going to generate a query in this render PHP. So when the block is rendered, there is going to be a process in the backend that is going to generate a query, and that query is going to, we will pass different arguments, which will include the post type, the status, the posts per page, and the specific category. So right now, the categories we have are this one. We have ID 3, ID 5, ID 1, ID 2. So we can, to start with, we can specify a hard-coded ID for the category, but then what we will do is to dynamically pass the category that has been selected in the UI. So this is okay. Let's create here a render PHP. Render PHP. Then in the block.json, we need to specify render I think is this. Okay, let me check this very quickly in the documentation. If we go to block.json, and if we go to render file render PHP. Yeah, perfect. So now we have this this render PHP, and what we can do is to add a query like this. And what we can also do is define here the arguments we need. And the arguments we need are defined here. So let's check the documentation of the WP query. So for example, if we want show posts, category parameters, show posts associated with certain categories. So this is what we want. Okay. So for example, we can just specify an ID. We can also specify the status. We want only the published posts, but anyway, only the category would be enough to start seeing things. So category parameters, we can just do this. And what we can do is new query args. And what I want to do is to define here cat, and we are going to select a category that exists in our WordPress installation. For example, this one, which is ID 4. Okay, so we have our query. Then we have the loop. We check if there are posts in this query. Then we start generating the HTML. We output a UL. Then as long as there are posts, we loop over this array. We change the reference for the main post here. So whenever we do get the title, it refers to this. And once we have finished, we restore the reference for to the main post reference. Okay, so we have this here. And now okay, let's check this. If we go to post, hello world, well, let's check first if the plugin is installed. Block category posts, we need to activate it. And then if we come here, hello world, block category posts. Okay. In the editor, it doesn't do anything, but if we go to the front end, we don't see anything. So let's see what's happening here. I think it's because we need to regenerate the build because we have added the render later. So let me check if this is the issue. npm run build block.json. Let me see. This is render. And render.php. Okay, this is in the SRC. So if we do npm run build, now the block.json also points to the render, which has been copied to the build. And now if we go here, yeah, we can see here the different posts. If we change the ID here to 5, for example, okay, the thing is that we need to regenerate. To avoid that, what we can do is to just launch npm start. This is going to watch for changes in our files, and it will generate the build version of those files every time the file is saved. So now we have changed this to 5. We have different files. Perfect. So we have the query here. Now what we need to do is to be able to somehow pass dynamically the category. Create a block that fetches and displays posts from a specific category dynamically. We need to have a drop-down that shows categories on the side panel and also display fetch posts within the block. It can only be a link title or more. Okay. So next part is to in the block editor to select the category. Okay, in order to do that, we are going to use in the block.json here, we are going to generate an attributes that is going to be category ID So our block is going to work with an attribute. This attribute by default is going to be 0, but what we are going to do here is to be able to change the value of this attribute. This attribute is passed to render PHP. So once we change the attribute here, we will be able to capture that value here and change the query accordingly to the new value of the attribute. And in order to do that, we need to work with the edit. So now the edit, this is a React component that receives props. What we can do is console log props. In the editor, so in the editor here, if we check the console, we can see the props that are received by this edit component, and we can see here the category ID. But also it receives a set attribute. So we have attributes and set attributes, and this function, we can use it to change the category ID. This set attributes is the function where we are going to call every time there is a change here to update the category ID. Okay. So let's go to the markup, and what we can do here is, instead of props, because we saw here that we receive attributes and set attributes, we can destructure this object and directly say here attributes and set attributes. And we can say here const category ID, and with this we have the category ID already in a constant, in a variable. Okay, let's continue. Starting tips: use ServerSideRender to render the posts. If we go to ServerSideRender, we can see ServerSideRender is a component used for server-side rendering, a preview of dynamic blocks to display in the editor. Server-side rendering in a blocks edit function should be limited to blocks that are heavily dependent on existing PHP rendering logic that is heavily intertwined with that, particularly when there are no endpoints available. Server-side render may also be used when a legacy block is provided as a backward compatibility measure, rather than needing to rewrite the deprecated code that the block may depend on. So the idea here is when this block is displayed in the front end, when this block displays in the front end, there is a logic in the render PHP that is going to display this. That is going to display this. The render PHP for that block. But the same no, I want to make this the same logic that returns the posts from the category that we use for the front end. We are going also to reuse it in the block editor. So we are going to and also for the front-end part is already defined, but for the block editor part, we are going to use the server. What is the name? ServerSideRender. Yeah, ServerSideRender. So we pass the block, which is our own block, and it will return the output of the render PHP for that block, passing specific attributes. So we will pass here the category, and it will return the posts. This is one solution, and maybe we can check another solution later. Okay, so we have this, and first of all, what we want to do is to generate okay, so what we want is that when we select the block here, we have here a panel that we can use to select a category. And then another process, when that category is selected, we will display the post. So let's focus on this. We can do that with inspector controls. If we come here in the block editor, here in fundamentals of block development, the block in the editor, we can see here, for example, the attributes, set attributes we mentioned, but then also we can see how for a block we can include in the edit component block toolbar or a settings sidebar. In the settings sidebar, this is managed by the inspector control component that is available in the block editor package. So here we can say inspector controls, and then we can also from WordPress components we can import panel body, for example, from WordPress components, just to check what happens here. So here we use inspector controls. Here we add a panel body, and here hello from my blog. And we are getting here an error because we need to wrap this in a parent component. So what we can do is use this fragment thing in React. That is this pseudo component that acts as a wrapper that we can use. It's like a empty component, but we can use it to wrap our React component. Okay, now that we have this, if we go to our blog, if we select our blog, now we can see here, hello from my blog. Okay, so we have the panel. Now what we want to do is to have a drop-down element. We need some UI components, and the UI components, we can get them from here in the locator handbook. Here in the storybook. I'm going to share this in the chat. We have different components. So what we want is let me see. Okay, this is what we want, this component. So we can import this component from components in the same way we have imported this one. And select control, it's a component where we can actually use this example here. And okay, we select, and here we have option B, option C. And also what we can do is whenever we select an option in the onChange selected value, we will receive a selected value. What we can do here is console log selected value. So let's refresh this. Let's open the console. Let's open the console. And if we select the block, we can see how the selection is here. Let's do one more thing. What we can do here is instead of showing this, what I want to show is the value of category ID. So category ID category ID. Okay, category ID. So what I want to do is to, once we change a value here, let's say category 1, and the value will be 1. category 2, and the value will be 2. I think it needs to be a string. Category. And we can do the same, category 3. The value is going to be 3. So we will receive 1, 2, or 3. Selected category. But instead of console log, what I'm going to do is set attributes. And the set attributes, we need to set the specific attribute, category ID, to selected category. But because selected category ID, so const, what we can do is to directly parse int so we will receive a string representing a number. What we are going to do, what we are doing here is transforming that string into a number and then setting the attribute using the function we are receiving via props. So now, every time we select a new category, this attribute of the block is going to change. And this is going to be re-rendered, and in theory, we should see the new category here. So let's refresh this. Let's select this. Yeah. And here we can see how the category changes. And also, with this, what we can do is go to our render function. Okay, bear with me for 1 minute. I have a bad cold this week. Okay. Okay, ready again. So what we can do is to check this attribute, and we have access to this attribute here via the attributes. So we have here the attributes here. So the attribute is category ID. So what we can do is to if is set this, and then no, we need this is a ternary function. No, if we set this. So category now, okay. Rel of Is there a reason that you begin with showing the posts instead of getting the categories? Putting them in a select and then think about showing the posts of that category. No specific reason. So is there a reason you begin with showing the posts instead of getting the categories? No specific reason. It's just that I thought this was going to be a simple way to start, but you could start from getting the categories as well. We are going to get there. The thing is that because we can hard code the IDs of the categories, we can start from there. We can just show that we are able to get the post from a specific category, and from there we can continue evolving. But there is no right or wrong way to get the final code. Okay, I think that we need to let me ask, because I think we need to convert this to an integer. And let me see in the documentation. The category must be an integer. So I'm going to ask cursor how to quickly convert this to an integer. I think there is an int function, but okay. Yeah, this is what I was thinking. Something like this. Nice. So now we have the category, and we now should be able to show different posts based on the selected attributes. So let's see what happens. View post category ID1, category ID1, view post category ID2, and category ID2, and category 3, and category 3. Perfect. So yeah, we have more things connected now. So now we are able to update the categories, and we are able to display in the front end the category, the posts of the category selected. And another thing that we can do already is to display the same posts in the block-editor. We can do that with the ServerSideRender usage. So in theory, what we can do here is this, and what we can do here is this. Create block category posts. I need to make sure that this name is the same that this one. So yeah, that's the case. And the attributes that we pass are the same that are being received here. And what we can do is here maybe so this is a URL. What we are going to do is to echo h2 post from category. Yeah, this is what I want. Okay, thank you, Relof. Yeah, the session will be recorded, so yeah, I have 40 more minutes, so I think that we should be able to get something finished by that time. So now if we come here, yeah, and if we go to the front end, yeah. So what we're getting now is the output from the render PHP in both the block editor and the front end. This is what we saw this. The render PHP is being used through the ServerSideRender component to display the output in the block editor, but then also in the front end. So this is what we are getting here right now. Post category, if I select this, category 2, category 3, category 1. Yeah, perfect. Now, next thing, we need to be able here in the edit component to get the categories from the available ones, because we have hard-coded this here. So what we want to do is to get the available categories from the REST API. Okay. So what we can do here is to do a request to the REST API to get the available categories, and then using the array of categories, we can show them here. So in order to do that, I use block props. We need to, that's why I couldn't select this. So deep. That's what I want. Notice how I wasn't able to select the block from the block editor. I had to do this. I couldn't select it from here. This is because we didn't have this use block props. This use block props, what it does. So now if I can select it now. What it does is adding like all these classes that are needed by the block editor in order to work properly. So yeah, this is important, and sometimes if you don't know this, you can get crazy to understand why the block cannot be selected. You need this. This is explained here in the block editor, in the Getting Started guide, in the fundamentals of block development, the block wrapper here. Here it explains the use block props and what is actually doing in the block editor. Perfect. So we need to do a request to the REST API. In order to do that, as recommended here, we are going to use the API fetch. So we are going to import API fetch, and here we can see how we can do a request directly to the different REST API. So for example, we have this, let me see, REST API, WordPress, categories. Okay, so in order to get the categories, we can do a request to this. Let me see if I can do a quick curl to my okay. If I open here a new terminal, I want to do curl. The URL of our site is this. And the okay, because I think I need to enable the permalinks, right? If I so if I go to this URL, I don't have, so let's check in settings, permalinks, we don't have yet. We have, so we need to maybe post name, that would work, save changes, and now, yeah, now we can access the, and now yeah, we have here the categories. So we have here the categories, and here we can see ID 5, ID 3 with the name and everything we need. So this is the request we have to do with API fetch. Let's check the examples of API fetch. I'm going to, so this is a React component. What we want to do is to do this request only the first time the component is rendered. In order to do that, what we can use is a hook called useEffect. Yeah. useEffect. And in order to use useEffect, I need to import it as well from WordPress element. WordPress element is like a wrapper of the React library. So in React, useEffect, okay, I'm going to share this in the chat. So useEffect is a hook that can be executed the first time the component is rendered, but also whenever any state variable is updated. But for the sake of our challenge, we need this. We need, if we pass an empty array, this will be executed only the first time the component is rendered. So if we update this in the editor, we should see in the console. Let me see. Yeah, for the component, we can see here that the request has been done, and we can see now the categories. Next step is to use these categories that we have retrieved from the REST API, use them to mount this dropdown. So the categories would be the options of this dropdown. Select. So let's continue and let's see how we can do that. In order to do that, what I need is to generate a state variable that contains the categories. So when we get the categories, we will update that state variable, and that state variable will provoke the re-render of the React component with this new state variable, and that state variable we can use that variable to mount these options here. In order to create a state variable inside the React component, we need to use another hook that is called useState. And then what I'm going to do here is const categories set categories. And whenever we get these categories, we will do this. We can do this. So here we will have an array of the different categories. But we need to do some cleaning of the. We need to do. Can I use async here? Sync const. We need to do some cleaning here. So let's add a debugger, and here so right now categories contains this. So for every category, what I need is the ID and the name. The ID and the name. Okay. let's be very explicit, categories from REST. But then what I'm going to do is const categories from the API map. What I'm going to do is to the structure for every category name ID. And what we can do, because the options, we want to use these categories values directly in this option. So what we can do is directly define the label as the category name and the value as the category ID. We can do this. We can do this like this. Categories options. But then what I can do is how can I add a first item to this array? The unshift method. Okay. To add a first item, such as a placeholder like select category, this is exactly what I want. To the categories options array, you can use array destructuring. Yeah, I think this is what I want. So what I'm going to do is an array where the first option I want it to be this. Is very similar to what we did here, but what I want is this. Select a category, value disable true, and then I'm going to use this, but we need to use this operator that I think is called spread operator. Spread operator, JavaScript, MDN. Okay, I'm going to share this in the chat. And now we have categories options, set categories options, set categories options, and categories options. We have created our own array of options from the request to the REST API that matches the structure we need here. So the thing is that when we execute set categories options, what we are doing is we are updating the state variable, the state array called categories options. And what we can do here is that options is going to be categories options. So set categories options will update this state variable, and this state variable, once it's updated, is going to provoke the re-rendering of the React component with this updated value. So in this re-render, these categories options will have already the values we got from the REST API, and we will be able to display or select with the options we want. And in this case, let's check what we are doing here. if we go back to local, WP admin, posts, hello world, and here we have the categories updated. Perfect. Perfect. So yeah, we have here, I think that we have, yeah, use the for API endpoints to fetch categories. Yeah, this is the endpoint that we have used. So we have a version that is good enough for this. We have 20 minutes. Okay. So we can iterate over this solution, and we can try to do things differently. First of all, instead of using before we jump to an alternative solution, let's review what we have done. We have scaffolded a plugin that registers a block. This is done. We have done this with the create block tool. The block is registered here. Because we are using blocks manifest in the build, there's a block manifest that contains the details of the block. So with this function, we are doing two things. We are registering the manifest and we are registering the blocks using that manifest. Okay. Then we have our block. This is the block.json of our block. It only has the editor script and the render PHP to define a dynamic rendering for the block. This render, what it does is to generate, it defines a query to get the posts from a specific category. And then we loop over the elements of the query. We get the post and we get the title, and then we reset post data to restore this reference to the default one for any template. And then in our edit.js, we have first added some panels. And then we are using ServerSideRender to reuse the output we have defined for the render PHP. But also we are using API fetch to get the categories, and from those categories we are mounting our own array of options that we can reuse here in order to get the options in the select. With set categories options, we are updating the state variable, which will update this variable, which is the one we're using here. So we get a request, we update the set variable, the React component is re-rendered with this value updated, and then we can render this component with the proper values. One thing that we can improve here is, instead of using the hook use effect, what we can use is a hook called useEntityRecords. So there's a post in the WordPress developer blog. So basically what we can do is to do the request to the REST API, but using the internal stores that are available in the block editor. So this would be something like useEntityRecords is something that useEntityRecords. Resolves the specified entity record. So we can ask for post type page, but we can also ask for taxonomy category. So the first parameter is the kind. In this case, it can be post type, taxonomy. The second argument is the name of the entity. So post type page, taxonomy category, and then we can add additional query arguments. But I think with useEntityRecords, so what I'm going to do is import useEntityRecords. Let's do very quickly. Let's check. What we're getting here. So if we come here, useEntityRecords is not a function because this is from core data. This is from core data, no data. Nice. So okay, let's try this again. I'm not sure why are we getting this. So every time, okay, so what we get is records and it's resolving. It's resolving false, it's resolving false, it's resolving false. And status is idle, is working, success, success. But here in records, we are not getting anything. But we can check here in network, in fetch. going to taxonomies. I think is this one. Per page 100 local user. Okay, and let me see. I have one example here. Working, so let's see if this solves the issue. So we have here const records. Resolving. We are not getting here the category useEntityRecords, taxonomy category. Yep. Here we have the nice. So we have here the categories and what we can do is okay, so what we can do is use this hook to get this information from the local store. So the store I'm referring to is category post type. Yeah, you were referring to the previous code, right? Yeah, no, yeah, it should be taxonomy category. Yes. Let me see if I can show the store here. I need to activate the Redux DevTools. And if I update this, here we have so the stores, so the block editor stores. Well, this is actually what I explained in the let me see if I can find the series of videos that I did about this topic. Yeah, this one. Yeah, so I did this series of videos about the WordPress data. And here I explain everything about the stores and all of that. So what we can do, what are we doing here is we are using this hook to ask the stores, which already has a lot of information from the REST API, and that information is cached, so we can leverage that information that is already there available. And because it's already a hook, we avoid the use of useState, we avoid the use of useEffect, we avoid the use of API fetch, so it's all integrated. So we can remove this, we can remove this, we can remove this, and we can remove this. And being a hook means that the information returned is going to be updated every time there is an update on these values. So this will act as a state variable. So whenever this is updated, we can do things here. For example, if categories contain something, we can create our own array of options. But if not, we can just return an empty array. And this will work the same. If we come here, okay, categories from REST API is not defined. Category from REST API is not defined. What we can do is, okay, categories, just categories. Nice. So it works the same. We have here the options, but it's a bit more elegant. I'm not sure if I'm going to have time for the second part, but another thing that we should avoid is using this server-side render. So ideally, we emulate the output we get from the render PHP in the editor. We could use, let me check if I can do something similar. So what we could do is to what we can do is to do const category ID attributes. So this category ID is going to be updated in this select. So maybe what we can do is to use again useEntityRecords, And to ask for the post, we have the post from the category. Okay, I'm going to let's see, const post useEntityRecord post type post and category ID. And here records posts. Okay. So now we have the posts. We can see in the console, we should see the posts from every category. Okay, post from category 1, no. If I select this, ID 120, ID 120, ID 120. It seems that we are getting all the time all the posts. So the category ID maybe it's not working properly. So post type post records posts. Category ID. Okay, let me check what's happening here. We select this, we change this. Category 3, and the preview is this. Category 2, and the posts okay, because some posts belong to the same, no. Okay. I think that we can wrap the session. So yeah, the next step would be to get the post using useEntityRecord, and instead of using ServerSideRender, using this. But for now, this is an improvement over the previous version that works already. So I'm going to leave this here. Let's check again that this is working properly. And update future. So if we save and we view post, the future. Okay, so yeah, I think this is a good enough version. I'm going to leave it here. As I said earlier, in this repository, I will leave all the notes and all the links that we have mentioned during the stream. And yeah, if you have liked this session, maybe we can continue with more challenges. I think it's a good exercise. So yeah, I would love to continue doing these sessions. Let me know what you think. And yeah, I'm closing for today. And yeah, have a great weekend, everybody. Bye.